A warm welcome to all of you, folks who are here in person, folks who are online. I'm always grateful for this gathering, grateful that we get to practice together and support one another on this beautiful path. Hola, Claudia. And today is Sunday Sounds of Dhamma. As usual, we'll have about half an hour of meditation and half an hour of Dhamma talk, and then a bit of time for questions, reflections, and the dedication of merit at the end. So I will say we're having a bit of a tech glitch. So if the sound changes, the folks online, if the sound changes a lot, gets too soft, then please raise your hand or do something and let me know, and I will fix it on our end. Also, announcements. So we have a big day coming up on December 10th. Wednesday night, December 10th at 6:30, we will be having our first ever Zen priest ordination here at Dassanaya. So we'll send out a little more information about that, but it will be available on Zoom for anybody who wants to attend that way. You can just join the regular, this same button that you pressed to get here today. You can do it that way on the public Zoom. And what else is happening? There's a new class starting on Monday. Still time to sign up. It's funny, at the San Francisco Zen Center is our host. They always let people sign up even after the first week and get caught up if need be. On the teachings of non-self. What do we mean by non-self, and how would we study such a thing? And what else? I think that's about it. There are various and sundry other things there on the website for you to check into if you would like. Mm. So I think today's meditation will begin with just tuning into the stream of mental activity. First, of course, we always settle into the body, then we'll turn to the stream of mental activity and see what we can see there. Mm. So if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and mute your mics. And I like to always begin with a bit of movement, just loosening up the body and releasing any tension that you can let go of in this moment. Feeling the weight of the body on your seat. And releasing the belly. Really allowing the body to continue to settle. And moving the attention up to the chest and the ribs. And releasing. Just allowing the muscles to get soft and wide. Leaving plenty of room for the breath to breathe the body naturally. And relaxing the eyes and the face. And perhaps by now you're also aware of mental activity. Thoughts coming and going. you could just rest the attention on the thoughts. Staying curious about mental activity. And perhaps beginning to notice the endings of thoughts. And if you get carried away by thoughts, then when you notice, you're already back to being mindful of each thought as it comes and it goes. And by simply observing thoughts without judgment or entanglement, then perhaps thoughts can begin to slow down, or it can feel like fewer thoughts. Perhaps just checking in to see what you observe. Beautiful. So that brings us to the Dhamma talk portion of our program for this morning. So let's see, I'm going to begin as usual with the homage to the Triple Gem. And everyone who would like to is welcome to chant along. Folks online, please keep your mics muted, except for Claudia, who's interpreting. And this is just really a short verse that is saying honor to the Buddha as the fully awakened one and as representing, say, the human capacity for awakening, and to the teachings and to the community. So we can all chant along together. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. A key aspect of the path of awakening is to study the mind, to understand the workings of our own minds. And it would seem like a simple thing to do. Our minds being essentially the place we live, ever present. And yet there is a beautiful art to it. We have thousands and thousands of sets of instructions, if you will, in the form of the Pali discourses, the Sanskrit sutras, the books and commentaries and teachings from thousands of years. And all of that is tremendously helpful, but we each have to find our own way, our own understanding of this very mind. My root teacher, my ordination master, Seke Harada Roshi, used to say, there are as many minds as there are people. And I would go so far as to say there are as many minds as there are moments. A different mind in each moment. In fact, at some point, the folks who compiled what's known as the Abhidhamma, the sort of systematic organization of the teachings that is known as the third of the three baskets, they tried to figure out how many moments there were in a mind moment, or how many mind moments there were in a minute, and so on. But perhaps counting isn't necessarily the most helpful thing to do. So what is the most helpful thing to do? Although I am grateful that the folks of the Abhidhamma did try to organize and comment on things. I'm not saying that it's not helpful to some folks, but what is it that we can approach directly? This is what I want to talk about today. And you're going to want to sit where you can see the screen, because I'm going to do some visual instruction. So when we were at the retreat, some of you know that I was up in Massachusetts leading a retreat on emotions and Buddhist art and the path. And in that, we get together in small groups and have what I call practice encounters, right? Where there's a little bit of a discussion or a question that some individual person will bring, and we have a little bit of an encounter around that. And there was one particular encounter in which I was talking about this, addressing this. But I want to also connect it to this beautiful sutta about a nun called Jatila. And so she's a very interesting figure, because we don't really know that much about her, actually. She's only mentioned in this one place in the suttas, as far as I know. And Jatila Gahika. And the way that we hear about her is through Venerable Ananda. So this is Sutta Number Discourse 9.37, from the chapter of the Nines, the 37th Sutta. And it's Venerable, so now Venerable Ananda was the Buddha's attendant for the last 25 or so years of the Buddha's teaching period. And he is said to be the one who recited all the teachings after the Buddha's death, so that there could be a council, there could be a group of monastics who all got together to make sure that everyone had a shared understanding of what the Buddha's teaching had been. And in this case, Venerable Ananda is recounting his own experience, his own sharing. But he starts out the sutta, it's quite interesting, this part. He starts out the sutta, let's see, I have various kind of translations here, so let me just deal with the one that I have handy. So this is a translation by Venerable Bodhi. So apologies to Claudia, who's translating, because I didn't give her this one. I gave her a slightly different one. But he is there at Kosambi, and he says to just another group of monastics that happen to be there, it is astounding, it is amazing, friends, that the Blessed One, meaning the Buddha, the Tathagata, the Arahant, who knows and sees, has discovered the achievement of an opening in the midst of confinement for the purification, for the overcoming of sorrow, for the passing away of pain, for the realization of Nibbana. He has discovered an opening in the midst of confinement. This is how Venerable Ananda is talking about the Buddha's teaching. And that so resonates for me. Because what he's talking about the experience of the mind. So this is where the hand gestures come in. So I'm going to try to do this in a visual way that is helpful. And so oftentimes when we sit down and we start to intentionally look at the mind, we are looking at something like this. Can you see this? I'll put it in front of my chest, in front of my black robe here so you can see it. We're looking at something like this. We're looking at a mind that is contracted or tight or anxious or fearful or angry or stressed in some way. And what happens is that the thoughts, the individual thoughts, tend to kind of pile up on one another. They tend to get very tight. The Buddha also talks about this in another sutta when he's talking about the five aggregates. And he says that our reactions or our responses are like leaves, plantain leaves, right? They wrap around each other and they create a sense of solidity that isn't actually there. If you peel away the leaves, there's no actual trunk to a plantain tree. And in the same way, when we start to look, sometimes we are looking at a mind like this, like the thoughts all kind of wrapped around each other and feeling perhaps quite tense or feeling kind of solid. Somebody on retreat was describing their mind as being like a solid overcast sky, just clouds as far as they could see. Yeah. And in fact, clouds is a metaphor that is often used for thoughts in the mind. Or wind is also another way that that's used poetically for thoughts in the mind. But so anyway, so we start out and we have this kind of solid thing that is a little bit hard to relate to sometimes, or this kind of contracted thing, or this thing where the thoughts are very running up right against each other, right? Sometimes we call this racing mind. Racing mind is like this, where the thoughts are all tangled up in each other. But then after some time of practice, so now I'm going to switch to the left hand because I need my right hand for something else. So then after some time of practice, maybe decades, maybe minutes, maybe moments, then what you start to see is you start to be able to open up the mind such that you can start to see individual thoughts of experience, but you still have them kind of all together. You see this? You still have them kind of all connected to each other. Like one thought follows the next thought, follows the next thought, and there's no room, right? It's just like that. These are moments of experience. Mind you that when I say thought, usually we think of like a mental activity, but thought, everything, technically speaking, is thought. Even bodily sensations are thought because they require consciousness in order to be known. Okay? So we'll get deeper into that later. But for the moment, we're just going to say that these are moments of experience, and you can start to see moments of experience in like a sequence. And this is beautiful. This is lovely, right? Because then what happens is that you can begin to train your attention to ride along the moments of experience, right? You can train the attention to move from one moment of experience to the next one, to the next one, and actually start to see them in sequence. And this is a point in practice where people start to talk about everything is one, and everything's just a beautiful flow. That's this time in practice, which is a lovely experience. It's a very lovely experience. And it actually says something about having trained the attention to move along, to be willing to ride along the moments of experience. Yeah? So that's what's happening there. But still we have pretty much a solid here, right? Pretty much a solid. Until you begin to observe that there is space between the moments of experience. And this requires the mind to be very, very settled and much more clear. This requires a degree of concentration. This is why the Buddha said that concentration is necessary to the path. Because without concentration, you cannot begin to separate the experience moment by moment. You can't know moments of experience really as in separate phenomena, right? And why do we need to know moments of experience as separate phenomena? Well, because there's a distinct beginning and then presence and then end of each moment of experience, right? There's the beginning, the presence, and the end. And like that. So that's why, as we did during this meditation, and as is actually recommended in the Anapanasati Sutta, in the Sutta on the 16 stages of mindfulness of breathing, we try to learn to see cessation of moments of experience. We try to really catch that ending a little bit, right? And you notice that in order to see cessation, you have to be present for that middle part at least. Even better if you can see it from the beginning, right? Depending on how fast it is. To see the beginning, the presence, and the cessation, the beginning, the presence, and the cessation, and so on, is helpful. Both ends of it. And still, this is still somewhat experienced as a flow, oftentimes, because there's this consciousness is kind of hopping from one moment of experience to another. Even you hop from the cessation to the next start. You hop from the cessation to the next start. And don't actually observe that there's anything else in between. Yeah? But then there is a shift, and this is the shift. So the shift is that when there is the ability to stay completely present, even after the cessation, without hopping to the next beginning, then there is this thing. Then you drop through moments of experience. That's Nibbana, that thing in the middle there. That what is in between the cessation of a thought and before the beginning of a next thought, that is Nibbana. And that's always there. It's not that it hasn't always been there, even when the mind felt like this. It's just that you can't perceive it until there is this training of the attention to be able to do that, to see it. And the willingness to let go completely, to let a cessation be absolutely complete. If only once, to let cessation be absolutely complete. You know, a while back I was on a retreat with Venerable Ananda, and he was leading this retreat about these 16 steps of mindfulness of breathing. And he got to this part about talking about cessation. And I saw Venerable Ananda, we're friends. I saw Venerable Ananda when I was there at BCPS. We had a lovely little walk. And this wasn't what we talked about, but I will just show you what he did. So what Ananda did during that retreat is he grabbed one piece of paper, and then he grabbed another piece of paper, and he was like this. He was like, look, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. And then, but we should be like this. And that now I know what he was talking about then, right? That what he's saying is that what he was trying to demonstrate with his pieces of paper is that that this tendency of hopping the attention over that complete cessation and grasping immediately at the next thing, that makes it look like the moments of experience are together. It's based on clinging. It's based on clinging. And the alternative is described beautifully by this nun. So I'm going to come back to this sutta that I was sharing with you before, because this nun, so Venerable Ananda goes on in the sutta, and he describes this conversation that he has with this nun as an example, as a beautiful example of what he's trying to talk about in terms of the Buddha having given us this way of an opening in the midst of confinement. Okay? So he says, the nun, Jatila Gahika, came up to me, bowed, stood to one side and said, so she was politely approaching him and said, Venerable Ananda, regarding the immersion, or you could say the concentration, that does not lean forward or pull back, that is not held in place by force, by suppression, being free, it is stable. And being stable, it is content. And being content, it is not anxious. Then what did the Buddha say was the fruit of this kind of concentration? Right? So she's describing her own experience here, her own meditative experience, right? So just to say it again, is a concentration that doesn't lean in or pull back, or is not quiet by force, is not forcing the mind to be quiet by suppressing thought. It is stable, is content, and is not agitated. So what is that? He says, Sister, Venerable, regarding that concentration, it is the fruit of awakening. The Buddha said that the fruit of this is awakening. So she is an arahant. She is a fully awakened being. And she's describing this way of meditating such that the mind isn't grasping and clinging and pulling the moments of experience together into a solid. Or tamping them down, right, and trying to make them quiet by force. So she's talking about this very experience, right, of knowing the sense of separation between the experiences, allowing that to be the case fully. And when clinging is completely done, then dukkha, suffering, unsatisfactoriness is completely done. That is the statement of the Four Noble Truths. That is the teaching that the Buddha gave from the beginning, immediately after his awakening, all the way until the end. So the task before us is to know the mind and to, as best we can, be willing to let things come to their natural end. And that's why I always come back at this time of year to courage. That the path is a path that requires a tremendous amount of courage. Because it's not asking you to just let go of one thing or one problem or one person or one moment. It's asking you to let go again and again and again, completely. But the beauty of it is that having seen the nature of how it works, that letting go is natural. It's just like falling between that space. I forget which Tibetan teacher it was who said, yes, you're falling, 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 and the good news is there's no ground. There's no splat at the end. Right? But you have to have the courage to experience it in order to know that for yourself. Because we are clinging, because we believe we are these moments of experience. And it's, in a way, it's kind of like, it's a funny conundrum. You could say, this thing is nothing but, this life is nothing but the arising and ceasing of that phenomena. So, is that you? Well, I would say, there's no you. There's just that. There's just that. So let it be what it is, and that is peace. That is peace. So I invite you to have a good look at your own mind. Really ground yourself in courage and patience. And what you see there will set you free. What you see there will bring peace. Okay, friends, so now we have come to the part of the program where you can ask questions or offer some reflection on the meditation or on the Dhamma talk or what's going on with your practice. And we're going to pass around the mic here because Nino has hidden the other mic. The cat has hidden the other mic, so I don't know where it is. Yes, Ray.
Thank you for today's talk. Um, so it really reminded me of this term capacita, I think, monkey mind, where our minds are like a monkey leaping from vine to vine always, and these vines are thoughts. And so I was just thinking during your talk, if you hold on to a vine too much, it's gonna break and you're gonna fall down. So as the monkey mind, you're going to have to continue to swing from vine to vine, from thought to thought, and hope not to cling to any of them, or hope it's not a bad mind. So the monkey always has to be aware of where it's going and everything. So I think your talk today helped really cement that idea of how our minds are just naturally likes to meander about, and through meditation practice, we train that monkey to behave itself and not misbehave. So thank you.
Yes, yes, right. That's right. That is that monkey mind is a very good description, right, of this kind of way that we want to string them all together. We want them to be able to continue, and and yeah, the suggestion is let the monkey go ahead and just let go, right? Just go find another way. Find another way. But yeah, behaving is an interesting dynamic, right? So there's a little bit of both, I would say. There is the need for us to make choices about how we attend to our minds, how we attend to our lives, to sometimes apply some discipline or some, you know, strictness about what kinds of ethical choices we will make, for example, or sitting a little bit longer than we might want to, or things like that. And that won't actually get you all the way to awakening. Awakening is something that is fueled by intention, but ultimately is basically kind of a natural opening that's happening there, as Venerable Ananda was talking about in the sutta. Right? So there is also the aspect of just the nature of how things work is showing us all the time. This is how it is, right? And that the discipline is what helps us to stay there and to learn to attend to all sorts of phenomena that we may or may not want to be with. But the you could say the other side of the equation, if you will, or the natural process that's happening there, is also doing its part. Yes, Anita.
Thank you, Aya. Thank you. I really enjoyed this talk. There's an echo.
Oh, so sorry. Let me fix this. Okay, there we go.
So I just yesterday completed the Brahma Vihara and Emptiness course with Bhikkhu Analayo. And I'm doing this course for the second time, and I'm realizing the depth of the teaching in that the steps that lead up to signlessness talk about this profound letting go, which is what you referenced.
Mm-hmm.
The letting go of need to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that sankharas include not just thoughts, but any sense experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered if you could elaborate on that. And one other question in the sutta too, Ananda says, being free, it's stable. Being stable, it's content. Being content, one is not anxious. So this anxiety, this natural instinct to want to continue it seems that the Buddha is even talking about letting that go.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could elaborate on those points, please.
Yes. Yeah, so very much the case, Anita, as you said, that there, in order to experience Nibbana, which is non-experience, right? In order to, in order to, you can say, drop into Nibbana, which is non-experience, right? Then we need to stop this. We need to not insist on the next moment of experience, but allow that dropping through. And the I mean, part of it is driven by the persistence of attention, right? If attention is really closely aware of the experience and staying there, then you could say it's just naturally going to fall off. It's just naturally going to, my master said that waking up is kind of like falling off a log. So and the letting go of bodily experience, there are various meditative practices that help us to do that and get used to that, get comfortable even with that, right? So sometimes third, but definitely by fourth jhana, if you get into, very deep states of concentration, you would, it's just like a window closes. It's like, shh, the window closes and all bodily sensation was out there somewhere. And now the mind is completely relating to itself. Consciousness relating to consciousness. Or another way to think about it is there are these so-called formless perceptions. So the formless perceptions, there's instructions for them in Middle Length Discourse 121. And that goes very simply, step by step. Like first you start out with the perception of earth. And then, and you gradually expand these perceptions and make them more and more subtle, drop off various layers of experience. And this, again, this is just, it's like exercising the mental muscle. It's like training the mental muscle that it's okay, actually, to let go of various types of perception, that it's okay to abide in states that are without bodily sensation, for example. So these are different practices that are given to help with the preparation of the courage to actually, again, sort of let cessation be complete. Okay, hopefully that's helpful, Anita. You can see what you think there. Yes, and yes, I think it's interesting also that the nun Jatila, Venerable Jatila, she is the one that mentions this part about when the mind is free, it's more stable, and when it is stable, it's content. And that is a very, very, again, it's a very good pointer to us that the irony of clinging is that we are constantly clinging and grasping after things, thinking that that is what will make us content, that that is what will bring stability, that that is what will bring whatever it is we need for us to progress on the path even. And yet it is the opposite. It is the opposite. That stability comes by relinquishing the clinging, by letting go of that idea that there is something more that is needed out there, that there's something incomplete in this moment of experience. It is complete. It is so complete that we're afraid of how complete it is. Huh? Do you see?
Yeah. So I just have, so does that mean perception is a sankhara too?
No. So perception is a sanya. Perception is a sanya, and perception is, you could say, that kind of middle ground before there is the response reaction and there is the basic contact itself. But all of them require consciousness. So all of them, right? Any form of contact whatsoever is requiring consciousness. And this is why the Buddha often speaks of, in terms of co-arising. Although perception doesn't always co-arise. Sometimes it takes us a moment to figure out what a thing is or to give it a label.
But perception and feeling tone are conditioned, and consciousness can
Yes?
not. I'm sorry. I guess consciousness always arises with Namarupa. I'm getting confused.
Yes. It's okay. Just focus. If you just focus on the what can be known in terms of mind moments, what can be known in terms of experience moments, then you'll see that the consciousness also has its ending. Right? That even in these states, and this is why the Buddha also says in Majjhima 121, he says, even these states that are extremely, extremely subtle, very, very subtle, very boundless, very open states, awareness of nothingness, and so on. It's like that is still consciousness relating to consciousness in a way that doesn't see the end of the moment of consciousness yet. Right? Okay. We're going to take Haya's question. Thank you, Anita.
When the nun, whose name I can't remember, was talking, she was talking about consciousness, but he says she's experiencing nirvana. But if she's talking about consciousness, it's not yet nirvana, is it? I mean, like it's related to the other question I have, which is like awareness. Like I've heard that there, even in nirvana, there's no awareness, like even the awareness drops off.
Yes.
And does it drop off because awareness is sort of like simultaneous with experience? I mean, like when there's no experience, there's no awareness.
Okay, so we should be clear that there, so now we're getting into technical stuff. So when this thing happens in between the moment of experience, that is known by something called an unestablished consciousness. That is known by unestablished consciousness, but it is not, you could say it's not your personal consciousness. It doesn't belong to you exactly. So this happens and there's nothing. It's signless. There's no way that anything can be known. So don't get involved in the terminology for that because that makes it more confusing, I think. In fact, there have been huge debates. Ajahn Brahmali wrote a beautiful article about it, et cetera, et cetera. Just what she's saying is that this immersion where there is this, let me use exactly her words so that we are getting it clear. Right, it's free. It is not leaning forward or pulling back or held down in any way. Right? So just allowing each moment to arise, be present, cease, arise, be present, cease, and knowing that there is a gap in there. So both things are necessary for awakening. That moment of signlessness, of no, there's no you there, there's no sense of like the shape of the mind or even boundlessness of mind or brightness or anything. There's nothing to go by. That's what signlessness means. But in the next moment, you could say there's like the reboot. You could say in the next moment is the next moment of consciousness that knows that that happened. It goes, oh, what was that? And that also is a knowing. So when we see it in the suttas, what we see is that there is the freedom, there is the release, the liberation, and then there is the knowing and seeing the liberation. That's how the Buddha speaks about it numerous times. That knowing and seeing of the fact is what makes it liberative.
So you're not knowing it at the time, you're knowing it as immediately afterwards.
Right, because there's no you at the time, so to speak. There's no awareness of, there's like definitely no observer, let's put it that way. There's no observer at all. But it is known retrospectively, so to speak, that sort of like the lights went out. Oh, what was that?
And yet you say it's very restful. So it's restful afterward. I mean, you're aware that it was restful, or
It's restful because there's no stimulation.
Yeah.
Right? It's so stimulation. In fact, there was another sutta that I was going to talk about today, which is this Majjhima Nikaya 121. And he refers to sense experience as disturbance or like impact or like that, like stimulation. So just keep watching those endings, Haya. And then you can let us know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Julia.
I think you've answered it, but I hope it's okay if I ask the question in a different way.
Sure.
See if I can comprehend it. Two questions or two situations. One, if we're in meditation and the thoughts are flowing across, does one become aware when each thought ceases? Or the other situation would be if focusing on the breath, thought, go back to the breath, and then there's a cessation because you've gone back to the breath. Or it sounds more like, is it when the thoughts stop?
Yes. So in that moment, all thought and all bodily sensations and everything stops in that dropping off moment, right? So, but the way that and so back to kind of the instruction is something like this, like, first of all, you are training your attention to be willing to ride along experiences, moments of experience. All the different kinds of moments of experience. This is actually why it takes a long time, because we want to hop over certain ones. We want to hop over the ones that are painful. We want to hop over the ones that are neutral. You know, we want to just hurry up and get on with the thing or whatever it is, right? But the initial part of the training is like, no, we're just going to stay with each moment of experience as best we can, right? Most of the time, that is impossible. Most of the time, our attention is kind of like skipping a stone across the experience that is the stream, right? But we're training it slowly to be there one by one, one by one, one by one, one by one. And then as we get better at that, that's called vichara. And as we get better at that kind of persistence, then what's happening is that we're not reacting. There are fewer reactions. And I mentioned this during the meditation, right? It might seem like the thoughts slow down, or it might seem like there are fewer thoughts. Why? Because when you're attending that closely, you're not reacting to the thoughts. Because it takes a great degree of steadiness to do that. So you're having less sankharas, you're having fewer and fewer reactions and responses just because of the amount of attention that it takes to be present for all of that. Right? That's how concentration happens. And then we have, this kind of one-pointedness, or we have this ability for the mind not to be distracted by other things. So then you start again. You can see these even slower. The attention is able to go even slower. And then it just naturally, again, is going to find those spaces, those moments of cessation. And then usually we want that next moment of arising to happen, or we are still going a little bit, right? A little bit of a hop. So just slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. And again, this is also why it's good to go on retreat, because it gives you an opportunity to sort of step back and just sit down and try it again. Just sit down and be still and as relaxed as possible, as patient as possible, and try it again. And then you get up, you walk some, you try to be as patient as possible with the feelings of your feet, right? And then you sit back down again. And even in lay life, even in just regular everyday life, if you can't, clock 2 hours a day, let's say, in 2 solid blocks of an hour, it's still helpful to sit twice a day, or even 3 times a day, even if you can only do, let's say, 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Why? Because you are bringing the mind back to say, okay, hold on. We're just going to sit. We're just going to slow down. We're just going to relax and try to see what's here. Just try to see what's here. Okay. Oh yes, Chaya, I'll give you this one.
Well, I'm not quite sure how to make this question clear, or so maybe I'll ramble a little bit and then it'll become clear. So when one is working, let's say, with the perception of boundless space, and then moving into the perception of boundless consciousness, then there are those gaps that become become more and more subtle of dropping, and that occurs. And just when working with that perception of boundless space, going into, to just keep paying attention to that and bringing it back. Can we elaborate on that a little bit? And then also you mentioned vichara, and that's actually referring to one of the 5 factors of jhanas, correct? Which is sustaining, which is basically a sustaining. Okay, so if you could, whatever you have, thank you.
Okay. All right, Hamza. So yes, so moving from the perception of boundless space to the perception of boundless consciousness, all of that, the only thing that's doing is saying is basically something like practicing being aware of stillness, or the absence of phenomena, absence of certain kinds of mental phenomena, versus practicing being aware of the knowing.
Could you repeat that?
So what it's doing is, so to be aware of boundless space is to be aware of that, you could say, the absence of certain kinds of phenomena, right? Boundless space is just saying that you kind of clear out mentally, you let go mentally of all certain kinds of phenomena. In fact, one way to practice it is you kind of set a horizon line, imaginary horizon line, and then you clear everything that is up to the horizon line. You just allow that to be space, right? And then you clear everything beyond the horizon line and allow that to be space. So what you're doing is you're dropping off a certain kind of perception of phenomena in favor of perception of space, which according to the Buddha is an element, right? That's the way that we think about it. Then when you shift to consciousness, what you're doing is you're just shifting to the knowing, right? That you are sort of putting the emphasis on that side of the equation, right? So contact has to have consciousness in order for it to be known. That's you could say always one side of the coin, right? So these exercises are just an opportunity to train the mind to be willing to perceive certain phenomena and to be willing to let go of that phenomena and then switch to the next one. With the eventual result that you let go completely of all phenomena at some point and experience Nibbana, signlessness. But it's just, this is why we have lists, or we have different, right? We have like the four formless, the four form jhanas, the four formless jhanas, because it's a way of the Buddha kind of being thorough and saying, okay, well, now learn how to let go of this, learn how to let go of this, learn how to perceive this, and then learn how to let go of that. Yeah. And you don't know, I mean, this is the interesting part is don't get discouraged because you don't actually know, each one of us, you could say which is the one that is the most prevalent clinging at the time.
No.
So you don't know which one is the one that's going to unlock the thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So you don't have to be able to go through 8 jhanas. And in fact, Venerable Anali, when he teaches that sutta, he always says, you don't have to actually be able to do jhanas in order to have the formless perceptions. They're perceptions. So long story short, concentration is necessary, and it is definitely a concentration practice. But the point of it is to learn how to be willing to perceive any kind of phenomena, even the most subtle phenomena. And then at the end of that sutta, it specifically says, and then you know and see that those things are conditioned and volitional and therefore impermanent and subject to cessation. That is the key takeaway of that sutta, of that set of practices.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very helpful.
Okay, so we are at our time here. I'm sorry that we just kept talking and talking. So if there was a question from the Spanish group, please write to me. You all know how to get a hold of me. Okay, or make an appointment. I would be happy to talk to you because I saw that Claudia was going to have her hand up there for a second. But we are at our time. So Dana, I think I would invite you to please make the announcement if you would, and Jocelyn to put the information in the chat.
Okay. Giving to the Dassanaya Buddhist Community supports Dhammadipa, our guiding teacher, the physical location at the vihara, and allows us to continue to offer Buddhist teachings in support of the awakening of all beings. Thanks to all of you for your practice in all its forms, including financial donations. We reached 89% of our fall fundraising goal. Thank you so much. Our support pages are on the website under the support tab, donate, volunteer, and offer materials. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dana. Yes, yes. And well, he's not here, but I do want to say a big thank you to Sachadara. So Sachadara is also known as Todd Brown, as a beautiful example of volunteer service. He has been working on the front garden here at the vihara for months and months and months. And then our newest, so he put a Buddha there and lots of beautiful flowers and such. And now the Guan Yin has arrived. So any folks who are local, you can see that there's a beautiful new statue there. I will also post it to our, maybe the website blog and the Instagram. But just a special thanks to Sachadara for all his efforts. And everyone, because it takes all of us together to make a community and to be walking this path, this beautiful, demanding, and kind of wondrous path. May we and all beings be free of every form of suffering. May we and all beings be released from every form of delusion. By the power of the Buddhas, the Dhamma and the Sangha, and each one's efforts, may every being be liberated. All right, folks. Good to see you. Be well. Take good care.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias. And we'll have tea and cookies, or actually we have some